decided to make the world's most massive Cloverfield-style video game boss that the world has ever seen. There's just one huge problem. I've barely made successful AI, and I've never made a giant boss before. But I'm determined to make something incredibly epic, something where you are battling an inconceivably large monster. But how do you make a massive monster feel scary and intimidating? How do I even start? I would begin by watching Cloverfield again, so I could remember exactly how it made me feel. As I watched, I started to realize a big monster doesn't follow the same rules as a small one does. It doesn't navigate tight spaces or creep up on you. A massive monster simply walks over things. My Big Mama alien would need to ignore buildings and just walk over them to pursue the player. So I had my first goal, make a massive alien creature that can walk over buildings. So I set up a system to animate the legs. The big issue is Big Mama alien didn't want to step on the ground. She seemed to step on buildings just fine, but something was clearly broken. Well, I'm embarrassed to say that I spent over half an hour trying to figure out what was going on before I realized I simply hadn't added the ground to the procedural walk leg system, so the legs weren't registering the ground as a walkable surface. You see, procedural animation basically animates the legs dynamically, meaning instead of me telling her where to put her legs, she can decide on her own. And you've probably seen this sort of thing before in some really cool YouTube videos. Well, now that I fixed the ground, my Big Mama alien can walk anywhere in the map, which is kind of important, and it feels like we're making progress towards our goal of a massive Cloverfield-style monster. But we had one huge issue now. You see, AI in most video games uses these things called navigational paths. Specifically in Unity, it uses something called the nav mesh, and that generates all walkable surfaces for the AI based off height and angle and size. Well, the issue is if our big alien tries to follow a nav mesh, it simply won't look right. In fact, it breaks everything. We have to figure out a different way for our monster to navigate the map, and we can't use traditional means. So to solve this issue, I slapped a character controller on Big Mama Alien. This keeps her from falling inside the ground. And I realized, since she can basically ignore everything, she can just move in straight lines, meaning she doesn't need to navigate at all. It's actually way more simple this way. Her legs walk on their own, and all I need to do is tell her where to go. Well, that was working, but then she would get stuck on buildings. This is because physically her body would collide and hit a building or a tree, and the two colliders would stop each other. And the problem is without a nav mesh, she doesn't know how to get around this object. Again, that's why so many AIs use a nav mesh. And truly how different a large boss is than a small monster. To fix this issue of her body collider hitting small objects and stopping her completely, I gave her body a separate physics layer, and I specifically said in the collision matrix, which sounds really freaking cool, but it's actually this boring table. I just click this box, and that means don't let any buildings or trees collide with my Big Mama alien. Well, with that done, she now has the ability to traverse the map, like a ghost passing through all objects. Well, now that's just the easy part. The issue is now I haven't created any logic or scripts that allow her to find the player, or move for that matter. And before we have her move at all, we have to decide something really important: how her awareness of the players should work. Would she always know where the players are, or would she have to see them to find them? For this inspiration, I look no further than Alien Isolation. In that game, there was basically two AIs. We have the director AI and the alien AI. The director would push the alien in the direction of the player, but the alien still didn't know where you were. She had to see you or hear you. Well, the problem with that system is, though it sounds amazing, I've done it before, and it leads to very complicated situations where sometimes I wouldn't even know it was wrong because there's just so many pieces working together. And my goal for this AI was different this time. Keep it as minimal as it could be, while still being effectively terrifying. So, in my attempt to simplify, I have decided, why not just build a director behavior into the monster itself? I now have one script, and that's just way easier to debug than two. So, she is constantly aware of the player's whereabouts at all times, but she still has to see them to pursue them. With this core of understanding, I could move forward and program her behavior, and I already felt like I was closer to my goal of creating a massive, scary Cloverfield-style monster. Now, I knew how she would find the player as well as how she would move through the map, but how does her physical body react from the waist up? Well, I decided that I wanted her head to move and face the player whenever the player was out in the open, without something blocking the line of sight. She would also always look at the closest unblocked player. Well, at first this resulted in her breaking her own neck, and not looking at you at all. And at one point this caused a chain reaction with the colliders in her ragdoll, and it just made it go haywire, which almost resulted in a much more terrifying looking monster. I don't even know what I'm looking at. And I must admit, I sat there for a moment thinking, should I leave this in the game? But eventually I got her head dialed in and looking at the player, and I matched the body logic to mirror it to make her rotate to face you. And because we have already previously solved our nav mesh issue, she could move towards the player seamlessly once she turned around to face them. This felt like a huge progress, and I could already sense the player's panic as this massive big mama alien came charging towards you. Well, now she could track the player and move toward them, but it felt like it was missing a lot of feel. Feel is basically visual and auditorial cues, things like smashing buildings and big bass sounds, as well as making your screen shake. All of these would need to be added to my big mama alien to give her that feel. So I thought, what part of her would cause the most destruction? Probably stepping on things. So I wanted when the legs to touch the ground to spawn particle systems, like an eruption of debris when a foot lands. The issue is, I have no way to know which leg is hitting the ground and when. So the first step in creating the feel of our Cloverfield monster is adding these little circle shoes for our big mama alien. She rather likes the sensation of them, protecting her little alien toes. And I would need to put one of these on each of her feet, where the foot meets the ground. And then I turn these little circles into triggers, basically sensors. And with these sensors in place, I would need to create a script that detects when one of these little sensors hits a solid surface. It's crazy to think how much of what makes a big monster seem so juicy is what they do with their sexy little toes. So anyway, this system holds all of the feet sensors, as well as the particle effects for when the foot touches the ground, and I also made 3 sets of footsteps so that I could change how the footsteps sound the closer the monster gets to the player. Now here's what it looks like. Pretty freaking cool, right? Well, as it turns out, the sensors weren't triggering when they hit the terrain, like the ground. So it should actually be way more intense than it is. This was because these little circle objects, the sensors, didn't have physical colliders on them. This means they didn't know when they were touching the ground. They only knew when they hit objects like buildings. It was actually a very simple fix. I just added rigid bodies to each of these little sensors. And let's see how it sounds after the fix. Yeah, that's pretty much what I was envisioning in my head. With all that smashing and loud sounds, not to mention the screen shake. Our big mama alien is feeling very scary and intimidating. We're very close to completing our goal, but we were still missing something. Cloverfield, what am I missing? Godzilla, give me strength to find the answer. Ah, but of course, the iconic massive screen rattling roar. And let me see if I can... So let's add that to our monster and test it out. I've done it. I think I've created a insanely huge and intense monster to rival Cloverfield. But what should she actually do to the player? What abilities does she have? What happens when she dies? Will I ever get the ants out of my room? I'd love to hear your answer to these questions in the comments field down below right now. Oh yeah, and if you watched this far, I have a special gift for you. I hid 5 codes in this video, and if you find one, you can use it to play in the beta, which happens every month, and it would mean the world to me if you would wishlist Crackheads, the game this boss fight takes place in, at the link below. Thank you for watching. This has been Seth Odell Studios. Farewell.